Hey, welcome back. This video is going to be about installing the landing gear for the NexStar aircraft. So I'm going to start with my landing gear and wheel bags and get them out. So I got 1, 2, 3 wheels, which are not the wheels that came with the aircraft because I want bigger, taller wheels. It does include the landing gear, bag of bolts and stuff, and the nose wheel push rod. So that's what we'll need to get started. Let me review the steps and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've laid out all the parts. I got the 4 wheel collars with their 4 locking nuts. I got the special wheel collar with a longer bolt. These are bolts, obviously, not nuts. And that's going to go in the arm that moves the nose wheel. This is the nose wheel mount, and the 2 bolts and the 2 washers that go with that. So I think that's everything. So I don't do everything exactly as they say. You might have figured that out by now. Putting a flat on this doesn't always work as far as I'm concerned. So first step is to put 2 flats, and I don't like putting 2 flats on this yet. Because I think with Loctite the wheels are going to stay on. Flats aren't going to be that much better. It's not a critical component. If the nose wheel actually fell off, okay, so what? You're going to land. It's going to stop abruptly. It'll be fine. So I'm not going to put flats on. So the first thing it wants us to do is mount this piece underneath on the firewall. So let me bring the airplane over. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got my 2 bolts with the 2 flat washers on them, and I got my little nylon piece here, and I got my thread lock. So the way I usually do this, in this case, sometimes I'll vertically hold this and drop it in there. In fact, I think that's probably the better way to do it. So, this may go off camera a little bit, but basically what I'm going to do is tilt it up like this, carefully. First off, I'm going to take the thread lock off, cap off. I'm just going to try to hold this vertically with one hand and drop some thread lock in the line nut. Just one good drop of blue Loctite in the blind nut is all it needs. Okay. Then, as you might be able to tell, it's a little blue coloring around that. And we'll try to get this in place. Okay, so here we go. I'm not going to make this tight yet, just enough to hold it in place. I'm not going to tighten it down fully until I make sure that the nose gear is going to fit correctly. But the last one fit well, so I don't think I'll have a problem here. So let's see. Okay, that's sort of finger tight. Okay, then we get the nose gear. I got the nose gear, and we take the wheel collar, and we get the steering arm. Okay. Now, the tubing's not in place yet. I don't say anything about the tubing, I just noticed that. So again, they think the tubing is already in place and it's not. So there's a mistake in the manual. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is put the tubing in to test it, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and again, I like it when a plane comes together and they don't bother to tell you. The push rod here, you can see the push rod right there. Okay, there's the white push rod. It does go in. Again, it hit the former, so it wouldn't push all the way through. So I put the white tubing hit the former. So I put the push rod through and twisted it a little bit, and that was enough to get it past the former, and it's now inside the cabin. So, and it's looks like it's going to be in a decent position, that it's not going to bother all the wiring that I did. The tubing will be far enough in. You can see, there you go, there. The tubing is going to be far enough in, and I'm not going to make it flush. I'm going to let it be proud just a little bit in case I want to put some epoxy on it. And remember, the other end of this push rod has a slight bend to it. And the purpose in that is so that it allows you to get the push rod into the quick connect on the rudder servo arm. So that's going to be an interesting thing to make sure happens, because it's alright, yeah. Okay, so that's going to work. I can see that the little bend actually is going to help and be straight into the servo arm. I'll give you a shot of inside the cabin in just a minute. But the next step is to go ahead and put this fifth wheel collar in, and this arm has a slight hole, little hole right there. Okay, and that's got to make sure when you put the wheel collar in, it lines up with that hole. Okay, and if it doesn't, take a little drill bit or something, and make sure that is in nice and straight. Okay, so I'm just taking my little pin vise and making sure that that wheel collar is in the right place. So then I can take the screw and screw that in. Now this is not going to need any thread lock because it's screwing through plastic, and I can see one thing already that I'm going to want to do. The wheel collar is loose in here, and as I try to put the bolt in, it's moving around. So let me get this started off camera. I'll be right back. Alright, so I've got this screw started, and the wheel collar did move, so I'm going to take my pin vise and use it to poke the wheel collar around until it's lined up with that screw. Okay, and then I'll just tighten this down and make sure the wheel collar matches up. Okay, so you can see that the screw is inside the wheel collar there, and the little pin vise help keep it straight. And so that's going to go on the Z-bend. I'm going to, since I got that screw all the way in, I'm going to back it out. So back it out just enough to make sure that the landing gear, front nose gear, so I'm just going to back it out far enough to make sure that the nose gear can slide in there. So alright, that's a good spot. Now the nose gear does have a flat on it, okay, so you can see that that's already ground with a flat, and that flat is let me see, is that flat going to be to the left or right? So let's turn the airplane back over. I'll get my left and right straight. Okay, so there's where the nose gear is going to go, and the next thing I'm going to do is make sure that nose gear goes in. Okay, it does. So what you're looking for here is this nylon piece guides it into the hole in the bottom of, there's a little place for the nose gear to go into the engine mount, and doesn't have to go in very far. Okay, just like that. So now, if I look at this drawing correctly, I've got to put the Z-bend on, and I got to put the Z bend on in such a way that the this screw that goes into that locking collar will be facing outward. So I've got to put the screw down, put it on the Z-bend, and it'll come out that way. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this Z-bend out, and that's way too hard to get on there. There we go. Alright, so okay. So now the Z-bend is has the control arm, and I'm going to pull this out and move the locking collar back like that. But we're not done yet. Let's see here. That's not right. Okay, so let me pull this back out. Made one slight error. So I'm going to take this off because the Z-bend right now is toward the bottom. The Z-bend is supposed to be toward the top of the airplane. So let me pull this off, turn the Z-bend around like that, and then put this down. Actually, what I'm going to do is put the screw up and then on, and then these two things align. Love it when the stars align. Okay, so now I'm going to put this in. Notice that it can only go in one way, because if it doesn't go in the right way like that, then this won't be in the right position. Okay. Okay, so just like that. Good clearance, bare clearance, but good clearance on this side, and so no problem with it going in there. Now, the last problem is going to get getting the other end of the push rod into the arm of the servo and the quick connect. So let me stop for a second and see if I can just do that by pushing it through here. Hold on one second. Okay, so I've taken the little screw off the quick connect inside the cabin for the nose wheel steering, and now I'm just going to position that quick connect and move the push rod into that quick connect. Okay, that was easier than I thought it would be. It actually went in very smoothly. So now that that's in place, I can turn this over and get that push rod right where I want it. And that plastic tubing, there we go. That plastic tubing is going to have to be all the way in there because I don't want it to interfere with the... Chances are that plastic tubing isn't going to move anyways, but I want it all the way in there. I'm going to stop for a second and get a tool to push that in a little further. I'm going to epoxy it at the former anyway, so I don't need it proud to epoxy it out here. Again, that was easier than I thought it would be. I just took this pair of pliers here and pushed that plastic tubing flush with the firewall. So now if I do that, that's going to be all the way back, and if I pull it forward, that's going to be right about there, will be probably neutral. Okay, so neutral in this case is going to be set by the quick connect inside after we get the nose wheel on and the this in place. So now that that's in place, we can go ahead and put this nose wheel in and see kind of where the flat is. Okay, the flat is right there. And so I'm going to go ahead and tighten that down enough for the flat to hit. And I'm making sure that the nose gear is in the hole at the bottom of the engine mount. Okay, that's good and tight. Now these are finger tight, and I'll tighten more of those later. Well, actually those have Loctite on them, so I think I'll go ahead and tighten that down. That's going to be okay. So the two screws that are holding the nylon piece, because they got Loctite, I might as well tighten them up before the Loctite dries. Alright. Okay, so those two bolts are tight. This arm is mostly tight. And now we're going to have to see where neutral is. Okay, so neutral is all the way out there. That looks like neutral, which is good. And then we got, that's full one direction, that's full the other direction. I'm measuring neutral by making sure that this upper part of the wheel is 90. Okay, so that's in place.